You wake up and notice something's missing, but it doesn't announce itself loudly. The day begins like it usually does. Your life still works. The responsibilities are familiar. Nothing is actively wrong. And yet, the feeling you expect to accompany all of this never quite shows up. You can see what you've been given. You know there's a lot to be thankful for. You may even say that out loud. But gratitude stays at a distance. It registers as an idea more than an experience. It feels like something you acknowledge rather than something you're touched by. And that gap can quietly trouble you, especially if you value responsibility and faith, especially if gratitude has always been framed as a sign of spiritual health. When it doesn't show up naturally, the question turns inward. You begin to wonder whether something in you has shifted in a way it shouldn't have. When gratitude doesn't register, the quiet conclusion is often that something inside you must be off. You may wonder if familiarity has dulled your awareness, or if you've grown less receptive without realizing it. It can feel like a personal shortcoming, as though this should be easier than it is. What complicates that thought is how intact your life appears. You're functioning well, you're reliable, you take care of what's in front of you without drawing attention to it. And from the outside, that reads as maturity. From the inside, it can feel like this muted heaviness that never fully surfaces and never fully leaves either. Numbness rarely arrives in a single moment you can point to. It usually settles in slowly. It develops in people who learn to stay composed when things were uncertain, and people who understood, often without being told, that steadiness mattered and that falling apart wasn't an option at the time. When responsibility becomes a posture rather than a season, your inner world adjusts around you. You stay alert without thinking about it. You begin to anticipate what's coming. You keep moving even when something inside you would prefer to slow down. And none of this is deliberate. It's just shaped through repetition and necessity. And that kind of adaptation isn't a failure. It's a form of capability that helped you carry what needed to be carried. Over time, though, that posture has an effect. Staying oriented toward what's required leaves less room for what's felt. Your emotional range narrows, and not because you stopped caring, but because vigilance became the default. You learned how to remain steady, and steadiness doesn't ask much of feeling. Gratitude requires receptivity. It involves letting something land rather than managing it. It asks you to receive instead of prepare. And that can be difficult when your inner life has been trained to stay slightly ahead of the moment. So numbness isn't evidence of ingratitude. It's just the byproduct of long-term self-containment. You can recognize goodness without letting it all the way in. You can acknowledge blessing without staying internally braced. And this is especially common for people others rely on. If you're the one who absorbs pressure so things don't tip, your inner life often stays in a holding pattern. And that doesn't mean you stop caring. You simply stay guarded without meaning to. Now, faith can complicate this if you're not careful. You know what gratitude is supposed to look like. You know the language that surrounds it. So when your emotional experience doesn't match your beliefs, it can quietly feel like a spiritual problem. But God is not measuring your faith by your emotional responsiveness. He's not disappointed by muted feeling. Scripture is filled with people who showed up weary, confused, or emotionally flat, and were met with presence rather than correction. Numbness doesn't signal distance from God. Often it just reflects how long you've been carrying things internally without rest. It points to a system that learned to prioritize steadiness over sensation. It tells the story of faithfulness lived under weight. You may notice that you still care deeply about alignment. You still want your life to be shaped by faith rather than pressure. And what's missing isn't desire. It's just access. The pathway inward feels less available than it once did. And your numbness can function as protection. And not because you're broken, but because at some point being open wasn't sustainable. That protection doesn't automatically disappear when circumstances improve. It stays until something signals that it's safe to soften. God is not demanding gratitude from a guarded heart. He isn't asking you to generate feeling on command. More often, the invitation is quieter. It sounds like permission to stop holding yourself together so tightly, When gratitude fades, it can help to see it as information rather than failure. It tells you something about how long you've been on duty inside. It points to fatigue that lives underneath competence and productivity. And there's no need to force an emotional correction. Trying to talk yourself into gratitude usually increases the distance because it skips over what's actually needed. A guarded system doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to safety. Understanding yourself with compassion is often the first sign that safety is actually returning. Allowing numbness to exist without labeling it as a problem can be way more healing than trying to resolve it. You didn't arrive here accidentally. You adapted to what was required of you. Gratitude grows where vigilance loosens, where the soul senses that it doesn't have to stay on watch. That kind of softening can't be rushed, and it's going to emerge when it's ready. Faith at its core is about trust. And sometimes trust looks like admitting that you're tired in a way rest alone hasn't touched yet. Tired not of responsibility, but of carrying everything internally without relief. So if gratitude feels distant right now, that doesn't mean you failed. It may mean you've been strong for a long time. It may mean your system is waiting for a signal that isn't allowed to rest. You don't need to solve this today. You don't need to force clarity. You don't need to manufacture a response that isn't there yet. There is room to be honest here with God and with yourself without fixing anything. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is stop accusing your heart of being wrong and allow it to rest long enough to feel safe again. If you want to keep walking this out with me, I write one weekly letter for people who are tired in a deeper way. You can find it in the description below.